I'm Greg Hickman, and this is the What the Speak podcast.
What the Speak, episode 34. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Do you kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch? If not, these expert discussions and insider tips can help you right now, today. Welcome to the What the Speak podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kelly.
Struggling with feeling comfortable in front of an audience when you present? Or maybe you're confident, but you have difficulty stumbling over filler words like and ah. Well, you can start kicking ass today by signing up for our weekly VIP updates. As a bonus, you'll also receive 11 free tips that will uncover 6 psychological secrets to public speaking, plus 5 tips on how to stop using filler words. Go to whatthespeak.com/VIP. Greg Hickman, are you ready to answer the question, what the speak?
You know it. Let's do it.
All right. I love it. All right, Greg. So you're a mobile marketing guru or
I don't
consultant,
like the word guru.
but I'll call you guru. You're an entrepreneur, and you're also the host of a web show called Mobile Mixed, and that's at mobilemix.com. But let's hear it directly from you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. So I've been involved in mobile marketing since 2005. So represented some big brands and small businesses, and New York Jets, AT&T, most recently Cabela's, for people that are familiar with the hunting, fishing, and camping space. But then I've also worked with a lot of small businesses. I've started my own text message marketing company and sold that, or got rid of that, really. Kind of in the mobile space, it hasn't been around that long, so there haven't been mentors for me, very specifically, like in the job that I was at. So I actually started Mobile Mixed purely out of selfish reasons to connect with people that I thought were doing cool things in mobile, and build those relationships, maybe get consulting or something. I didn't know what it was going to lead to. It was mainly to learn. And then it kind of turned into this platform where people started asking questions about mobile and how I could help them. And through that, started creating some training programs, consulting, and now I'm working on my first of 3 books and/or handbooks, if you will, on some of like the most common fundamentals of mobile. So, that's a quick overview.
It's pretty fascinating because I know it's still it's a new developing area, and there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions about it, and like, what are the best practices? So great idea in zeroing in on that, Greg. Okay, now I'd love to have you talk a little bit about when you speak out, whether it's in the industry or to different groups. What is there like one key topic that you're focusing on related to mobile, or is there, a plethora of different things that you're talking about? We'd love to hear from you what specifically those topics are.
Yeah, that's actually a good point to be asking that question, at least for me, because I would say up until recently, it's pretty much been almost the same topic. And, it's always around mobile, right, but it's always been, for the most part, around how to get started. And depending on the audience, that presentation is slightly different. If it's like a small business crowd, or if it's an online marketing crowd, or if it's a big brand, that conversation is always slightly different. Yeah. But it's always around like getting started, foundational elements of mobile. And now recently, it's like I'm presenting at New Media Expo in January, and originally the topic was supposed to be getting started and all that stuff. And then they asked me to modify the presentation into more mobile content strategy, with New Media Expo being a lot of online marketers, content marketers, bloggers. They wanted me to really focus on the content aspect of it. So, and another presentation that I'm giving in the Philippines in March are really starting to push me to the point where I'm like, having to focus on one little aspect of it, which I actually enjoy, because I was getting tired of kind of that same presentation. Although it is for most people still really, really relevant. You kind of just have to give that same fundamental conversation. But I think into 2014 is when I'm really going to get to start honing in on specific aspects of mobile due to the audience, now starting to understand it a little bit better, and maybe they've already heard me talk about the fundamentals or what have you. So I would say previously it was very structured on how to get started, and now it's evolving to a little bit more advanced stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, mobile as a topic is something that's just slightly lagging behind social media as a topic. And, there's a lot of folks out there that are talking about social, have been talking about social for a long time, but there's been an evolution. We've gotten past this point of where people know, yeah, social media is important. I get that. Now, how do I leverage it? And I think it seems like with what you're focusing in on mobile, that people are starting to get, okay, we need to pay attention to this. This is something we need to learn more about, and to see you kind of in the early phases of the evolution of how you're talking about it, or going a little bit deeper beyond like the 101 message is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and it's funny because, having been in the space since 2005, I can't even tell you how many years I've heard people say, like, this is the year of mobile, this is the year of mobile. And then it was the year of social media. And then some people are saying this was the year of podcasting. And, to the point of, mobile has kind of been overshadowed by social media. I guess that's sort of true, but in a lot of ways, they're the same thing. I look at them, I'm continuing to look at them as the same thing. I mean, so much of our social usage is happening on a mobile device. Yeah. The way we consume content is happening on a mobile device. That it's really all one and the same. And it kind of goes back to a bigger picture of it's really just content marketing. And social media is promoting that content in social platforms, and mobile marketing is promoting that content and using it to drive traffic on a mobile device. So I think that content marketing umbrella is still, at least now more than ever, is still kind of above all of these things.
Absolutely. Well, and it's like it's a delivery method or a mechanism, or the context of how you're accessing that content. So okay, cool. Well, let's move along. I want to transition to talking about your origin story. Like, how did this all start for you? Obviously, you've got a clear expertise in this area, but let's go back to when you first started getting involved in public speaking. How did that come about?
Well, I guess I guess it depends on how you define public. Like going through college, in business classes, you had to present in front of, your classmates, much smaller scale. I would say that was public speaking. I guess we even did that in high school, to be honest with you. Again, just much smaller scale. When I graduated college, went into the advertising world and kind of was working in some agencies, and we would do client pitches. So we would be in front of, 10 to 15 of, prospective clients and or existing clients, kind of taking them through a new strategy or a new plan. So that was, I would say, probably the start of it for me. And I actually still to this day really like that atmosphere of, really small, intimate, and I don't know, I always kind of view that as way different, or at least maybe historically, I view that experience as way different than maybe getting on a stage and speaking at like New Media Expo or something. Yeah. But I think mentally now I try to tell myself that it's really just the same thing, which helps, which maybe I think we're getting to some tricks later. But so yeah, it started there, kind of small scale, just dealing with existing clients, new clients. And then when I started my own text message marketing company, I went out kind of on the local kind of circuit and was, speaking at, Chamber of Commerce events, local meetups and stuff like that, where it'd be anywhere from, 20 to 50 people. And really just sort of sharing advice. A lot of it was conversational, which I think made it easier, but it all started kind of on that local scene, if you will.
Gotcha. Well, I want to talk a little bit about maybe some areas that you've struggled with during the development of your speaking skills, but I want to come back to this idea that you talked about with the difference between being in an agency situation where you're doing a client pitch or you're pitching a project or a concept, and how there's similarities, but there are differences between that, and then doing more of a thought leadership type of approach where you're speaking at a conference, the end result is you ultimately want to instill action, some type of action
Yep.
on the part of that audience.
Right.
But let's talk through what you think that difference is, or explore the difference between you're trying to convince a client or a prospect
Yep.
to go with an idea versus an audience to, realize that mobile marketing is something they should pay greater attention to.
Yeah. So like with the client side stuff, I mean, yeah, you're really trying to convince them that, say it's a prospective client that, whatever you're sharing with them is valuable enough and it's going to change their business that they should be working with you. So like prospective client is, I'm trying to close a sale in a lot of cases. And then the, existing client is more of, trying to deliver that value. We believe you need to go in this direction for all of these reasons. Here are our ideas, sort of which one do you like? So you're trying to get them down a specific path of, here's what we're going to be working on the next 3 to 6 months or what have you. And these are kind of the options. So kind of setting up the scope of work, if you will. And those are different in that, I mean, there's similarities between those two as well, but there's also some differences. Like if you have an existing client, you already have the relationship. So kind of that introductory, like, who am I sort of thing, why am I here, has been covered a long time ago. So you can kind of just get right into it and, you're most likely comfortable with the people that you're speaking with. Whereas a prospect, you might have only had 1 or 2 calls, to set up the meeting that you're now standing in. And, they don't know exactly where you come from and all that stuff. So you're not only selling them on, the services that you offer and the ideas that you have, but also you as a person, because they haven't really gotten to meet you. Like, are they even going to like working with you? Like your style, are you like super abrasive? What's your how do you show up in that meeting? So I think, that situation, you're actually trying to gain, their trust and gain their confidence in you. And I think that's much more similar to speaking like on a stage where, like for example, NMX, like some of the people that are going to come to my session maybe know me because they've listened to my podcast or follow me on my site, right, or are friends of mine. But a majority of that audience are going to be people that saw the title of the speech, on mobile, and that was something that piqued their interest, and they're there to learn about that topic. They can really care less about me. They want to learn about, whatever the topic is for that presentation. Yeah. So I think, that's something that I'm still trying to work on, because I would say most of my speaking, most, not all, has come in a way where I've felt like I already know a majority of the people in the room, right, and like, which makes me feel way more comfortable when I'm up there. Whereas, New Media Expo, I think, will be an interesting one for me because, I know that there are a lot of people that are going there and there's only, 2 speakers that are even talking about mobile. So, I really want to deliver, the message about mobile, and it really is less about me and, being funny or them like signing up for my email or whatever. I really want to like deliver value, and make them think differently, because, a lot of these people have tremendous businesses and they're forgetting about this one aspect, or at least they don't understand or don't know enough about it yet, that I really think it could change their business. So, having that pressure of like, I'm only one of 2 people that are talking on this topic. Mm-hmm. Like, most of them aren't going to know who I am. Like, they need to have this message, hit home pretty good. And it's really only up to me to do it. So, yeah, you got to win the crowd, obviously. And kind of put your own ego aside a little bit, because it's not really about you. Yeah. Whereas I think kind of in the client side stuff, like it sort of is about you because you're trying to win the business. Whereas New Media Expo, yes, it's going to look good for me from a business perspective, and maybe it'll generate business, but it'll only generate business if I deliver, tremendous value and people walk away with, oh, wow, like I really do need to think about mobile because I haven't. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that really answers your question. But,
yeah, I mean, it's just really just exploring that and thinking through the similarities and differences. And, I believe that there's very similar skills, but For people who get up in front of an audience and deliver, let's say, a keynote, is not the same as walking into a prospect's office and trying to
Right.
convince them that you've got what they need and that they need to go with you. So there's persuasion involved in both, but they're at very different levels. So regardless, I think it's just an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I think actually one other thing to note is like I've also been doing a lot of like virtual summits. And I think those are completely different too.
Yeah.
Yes, it's, they don't really see you. They see your slides for the most part. But I feel like of all of the virtual summits that I've been to and participated in, it's very important to, up front be like, hey, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I've accomplished, sort of thing, to like showcase in the beginning that you're credible,
Right.
sort of thing. Like, whereas like a lot of the in-person events that I've seen, and at least the speakers that I like, they, once the clock starts ticking, like they go right into the content. Like there's no, hey, how you guys all doing?
Right.
Like, I'm Greg, like, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. Like all that stuff. Like it's a completely different style of presentation, at least the ones that I think are really effective. And that's something that I'm trying to work on as I'm going into this New Media Expo presentation and social media marketing world, and a handful of others that I have next year, is like, just diving right into that content and, capitalizing on the 40 minutes that you have, to really deliver that.
It's interesting that you say that, because I often tell people who are kind of, wanting to get better at getting up in front of an audience and quite frankly, being comfortable in front of an audience. And the thing I tell them is that, look, people showed up to listen to you.
Yeah.
They were told what you're going to talk about. And maybe they don't know the details of that, but from a high level perspective, they understand what you're going to be talking about.
Right.
And many times you have, whether you have somebody that introduces you, or you've just got, the information that's in the program for the conference, they have a good sense and they're coming to hear you specifically. You don't have to worry about losing their attention immediately, because you've got the authority when you stand up in front of them.
Yeah.
And they're captive.
And the organizer chose you to be there. Right. So like, they obviously think that what you have to say is important.
You've got some credibility, but when you're in
you've
that,
gotten validated.
Yeah. In the virtual situation, they don't know who you are.
Right.
And quite frankly, they've got a lot of distractions. They can pay attention to your, virtual presentation, or they can be checking their email, or they could be surfing the web, and you might lose them. So it's an interesting dichotomy between those two.
Absolutely.
So Greg, I want to talk just a little bit about, and you touched upon this, but is there anything specific related to struggles that you've had, whether it was, early on with getting up in front of an audience, or even, right now, as you prepare to do some of these really great speaking opportunities in early 2014, any struggles, anything that you can share?
Yeah. So I would say, I've always been comfortable getting up on stage and doing all of that. Like that's never really scared me. Although I will say that still to this day, and I'm surprised I'm even saying this right now, still to this day, basically right before I go speak, like I have to go to the bathroom. Like I have to like I always have the urge to like go pee or something. I'm like, oh my God, I got to go pee again. And like, I just always feel the need to have to go pee, like right before I'm getting on stage, like as close as possible to get on stage. I'm like, I got to go do this. Which that makes me nervous. That's what I get nervous about. Not like being up on stage. Like
that is awesome.
I'm like,
Greg,
I have to pee?
I mean, I have to tell you, I have the same exact thing. I do not get nervous at all. In fact, I love getting up in front of an audience, but I always have to go to the bathroom. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if I drink a lot or a little.
Exactly. I could be so dehydrated. I'm like, where did this come from? I have no idea. It's never been a real problem for me to get up there. I would say things that I'm struggling with, and I think are going to be our challenges for me now, is now that I'm getting like more and more focused in these larger events, the amount of preparation, I don't have that dialed in. because I've always talked about a lot of the same things, it's been pretty natural for me to go up there and have like a loose framework of slides and, just ad lib off of stuff, because I've been like living and breathing it for so long and I love talking about it that it's very easy for me to talk about. And so as I'm planning like New Media Expo and all of these, I'm thinking about, well, one, I'm probably overthinking, which makes me nervous because I know that I'm overthinking. I'm trying to think of ways that I can kind of deliver that initial, like, I'm going to catch their attention and get to the point in the presentation where I have the opportunity to just speak from my experience.
Yeah.
Like I'm not scripting everything, but I want to have the framework set up where I know that what I'm doing in the beginning from like an experiential part of it, like captures their attention. And then I can, as fast as possible, get into that, like, all right, now I get to talk about all the shit that I know about. I'm not sorry. Can I curse?
Absolutely. No problem.
All the stuff that I know about. So, like my struggle is like, how do I get there quickly while also, making sure I capture their attention in the beginning. And again, I think maybe the struggle is that I'm overthinking it, as you can already see. But I've been working with a couple speaking coaches and, we've been working on, how do we get into like, how do I first start? Because again, like a lot of the presentations I've given have been, like already set up, if you will.
Right.
And the most recent one was I was speaking on behalf of the brand that I used to be working for. So I don't know, knowing that I was there on behalf of someone else, for some reason mentally that made me feel like it was less about me and like I could just start talking about the brand.
Right.
And I don't know what kind of psychology is behind that, but like, in New Media Expo, it's like 100% about me delivering the message, and people are interested in the content, but like I'm going to be getting judged. Whereas like when I was speaking on behalf of the brand, the content, I feel like it was going to be less about me and more about like, oh, like I can't believe they're doing that thing, or that he said they're doing this strategy or whatever. Whereas in this, I don't know, maybe that's just because now I'm like on my own, building my own business that I feel that way. But I think the struggle is making sure that you don't do all of those silly little things in the beginning that, waste time and you don't need to do, and get right into that content.
Well, this is cool, Greg, because, I've obviously had a lot of discussions with folks who have been delivering keynotes for numbers of years, people who have been speaking for 20, 25 years, and to kind of get some insight into you at this place where, you're starting to grow into the next level, it sounds like, and to kind of hear some of the things that you're exploring, and some of the observations that you made are fantastic. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Well, let's move into the final portion of our discussion, what I call the rapid fire Q&A. About a half dozen questions, just very quick. Think of the first thing that comes in your mind and we'll run with it.
Yeah.
So the first question I have for you is, do you prefer to speak with slides or no slides?
Slides.
Okay. What's your approach to putting together slides?
It's always been try to be as visual as possible, not a lot of text, not a lot of bullets or anything like that. And really put enough on the slide that is really just a trigger for, I guess, me to talk about a specific thing, and even slightly be entertaining. But I think when you start talking about that stuff, unless you're pointing out facts or numbers or anything like that, they'll look at the slide and then they're listening to you anyway. So I feel like using it as the slides are a good tool to kind of keep your presentation in a certain structure and a certain format.
Agreed. All right. So who's one speaker that inspires you the most and why?
So this is a hard question, but the recent one, and he's a good friend and someone that's helping me with this presentation, is Pat Flynn, who runs a site called Smart Passive Income. And I say that for a couple reasons. He puts so much time into preparation. which I know is something that I'll never put that amount of time in because that's not the way that I work. Like I actually like having like a loose structure and being able to kind of ad lib because it makes it more, for me, it makes it more genuine, I think. And I think at the end of the day, it helps me deliver a better presentation. Whereas like, I know for him, like he's actively working on public speaking, like wants to be the guy that like, you know, gets keynotes all the time. And just his level of dedication from like getting coached in it, practicing. I mean, like he put 250 hours into one of his most recent presentations. Has he been on the show?
Yeah. He was on the show fairly recently. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. And in his rituals that he goes through, he gets dressed in the outfit that he's going to wear the next day for his keynote the night before.
Yeah. I'm actually talking to him later today about my presentation to get some feedback. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like just that level of effort, dedication, and like attention to detail for him is just like, it's definitely inspiring.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So what's like the craziest, the funniest, the most bizarre or odd thing that's ever happened to you when you've been up in front of an audience?
Crazy, bizarre, or funny? I mean, I didn't think it was funny, but I'm sure other people did. I was at mobilemarketer.com's event in September of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I don't even know if people saw it because of the way that the booth was set up, but like, or the podium, there's like a podium on like ground level. And then there's like 4 stairs to the stage. And then the other podium was on the opposite side.
Mm-hmm.
And I tripped up the stair, the first step, because I was like already looking at the audience and wasn't paying attention to how high the step was. And I sort of like kicked into the step. I caught myself, thankfully, but like I like easily could have fallen right onto the stage, like from behind this podium and been like laying there. And as I was tripping, that's like all that went through my head. The person behind me who was like the organizer saw it, and I heard them go like, "Oh," but I don't know if people saw it. But like I sort of laughed to myself. So that I would say that was it.
No, I always ask people this question, and it's the first thing out of it seems like everybody's mouth is, well, it wasn't funny at the time, or it wasn't funny to me, but it might have been funny to the audience. Or
well, when they released the video of it, and I was like, when I got that email saying like, here's all the video footage, I was like, oh my God, hopefully this is not on the video. Like that was the first thing that I thought of. Like it wasn't, oh, was it good? Or how did I look while I was up there? Or did I sound good? It was like, did they cut that part if they saw it? Because it was definitely on camera because the cameras were like far back. So they would have seen it, but that's all I thought about.
Funny. All right. How big of an impact has speaking had on your career thus far, as well as your business? Would love to hear that from you.
Financially, I would say I don't know. But from like an authority awareness, I mean, it's done wonders. And, you know, the fact that I was at New Media Expo for the first time this January of 2012, you know, as an attendee, and now I'm speaking, you know, 12 months later. I know that has to do with a handful of things, a couple like little virtual summits that I spoke at. And like, I know that I got to speak at Social Media Success Summit for Social Media Examiner, which was virtual, which through that, I got the invite to speak at Social Media Marketing World. So, I mean, I think it's definitely opened up opportunities that will ultimately lead to, you know, projects and work and clients and stuff like that. So I'm less concerned about that, but I think it has opened a lot of doors in regards to getting your foot in the door to speak to a certain person. I even look at the podcast as the same, you know, like I'm speaking every single day to my audience, and to be able to go to an event, or if I want to speak at an event, go to the organizer and be like, hey, look, you know, I'm on my like 89th episode. I've been at these events. Like it ends up being like a resume builder that, you know, is leveraged for you to get bigger and better things. So I would say it has had a pretty big impact in regards to opening doors.
Excellent. All right. Our final question for you is, what's one piece of advice that you wish you knew in those early days when you first got it started? Any insight that you've been able to glean that you would pass along to someone else?
Oh man, I wish I had I wish I could ask you that question with all the speaking that's coming up. I would say to whatever you need to do to put yourself in that mindset of you're in control, you're going to be okay. Yeah. Has really worked for me. And what I mean by that is earlier when I mentioned, even now, going into New Media Expo, even though I know that there's a lot of people that I'm not going to know, I think by even knowing that I know one person in the crowd is going to help me make it feel like I'm speaking in that client presentation room, where it's a much smaller audience. So having a significant or deep relationship with at least one of the people in the room, I think for me is something that I'll focus on to the point that it'll actually just calm me down. Mm-hmm. So if that's something that maybe helps people that are diving into it, and they know people in the audience, but they kind of, because they know them, they don't hone in on that person. Yeah. I feel like I might use that as a crutch, if you will, to be look at them, to kind of get back in that oh yeah, this is just an intimate conversation, with everybody, not just you, and then kind of refocus back on everybody, I think is something I'm going to be definitely focused on.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, we'll have all the links to your website, your social media profile, and your show, all in the show notes over at whattospeak.com. And I want to truly, deeply, sincerely thank you for your time, for sharing, some of the stories of your experience, as well as fun things like the fact that you have to go to the bathroom really bad before you present. So you truly are somebody that kicks ass when they speak, present, and pitch.
Thank you. I had a pleasure. It was my pleasure being here, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Take care.
Are you working out right now or listening to this episode while driving? If so, I know you're not able to leave a rating and review in iTunes at the moment. However, next time you're in front of your computer or smartphone, could you be sure to do so? Just go to whattospeak.com/audio or whattospeak.com/video. Thanks so much for your support.
All right, here we go with the outro.
Thanks so much for joining us today on What to Speak. Be sure to visit whattospeak.com for show notes on every episode and to sign up for our email list to stay updated on resources that'll help you kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch.